Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepless Scientist, a quiet place in the cosmos where your thoughts can unwind and knowledge becomes a soft lullaby for the night. Tonight's journey will take us into the question of doors to other dimensions, the hidden corridors of existence that may connect the visible universe to countless unseen ones. But before you settle in and get cozy, I'd love if you could take a moment to like this video and subscribe. Only if you truly find these quiet explorations enjoyable. And when you're ready, leave a comment to let me know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. It's always a gentle joy to see all the places we gather from, each in our own small slice of time. Now feel free to dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for a soft background hum, and let's begin our journey into doors to other dimensions. And if your mind begins to drift or wander, that's perfectly fine. Let it. We'll still be here, quietly unfolding the story. Somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, where light from ancient stars fades into silence, there might exist pathways that bend beyond the rules we know. For centuries, humans have dreamed of crossing such thresholds, into heavens, underworlds, other times, or parallel worlds. Today we call them portals, wormholes, multiverses, or dimensions. Each name is an echo of the same ancient curiosity. What lies just beyond the veil of what we can see? Imagine standing in a quiet room, surrounded by walls of darkness stretching endlessly in every direction. Now imagine that one of those walls begins to shimmer, not breaking, not tearing, but folding, like silk drawn by an invisible hand. That, in the simplest possible sense, is what a door to another dimension could mean. Not a door built of metal or light, but a moment when space itself rearranges its threads. When scientists speak of dimensions, they don't mean worlds stacked on top of each other like books on a shelf. They mean directions, ways something can move or exist. We know 3 directions of space: up, down, left, right, forward, backward. Add to them the steady rhythm of time, and you get the 4-dimensional fabric that Einstein described a century ago. A vast sheet that bends, ripples, and curves. When something massive sits upon it, like a planet or a star, that sheet dips slightly and smaller things roll toward it. We call that gravity, though in truth it's more like the gentle sag of the universe's mattress under weight. Now, the idea that this sheet might have folds hidden from our view isn't fantasy. It's an unavoidable consequence of certain theories in modern physics. To make sense of both the cosmic and the microscopic worlds, scientists once imagined that space could contain extra directions, curled so tightly that even light can't slip into them. Think of an ant walking along a garden hose. From far away, the hose looks like a line. But to the ant it's a world with 2 paths, forward and around. We are the ants. The universe may be the hose. The other directions exist, but they're too small for us to notice. If these hidden dimensions are real, then under special conditions, perhaps near immense gravitational forces or at unimaginable energies, they could briefly unfold. Not like an explosion, but like a flower opening at dawn. A portal in that sense wouldn't tear the cosmos apart. It would simply reveal a route that was always there, coiled and waiting. Physicists sometimes imagine that the universe itself might have begun as one of many bubbles rising within a greater cosmic sea. Each bubble could carry its own laws of nature, its own rhythm of time, its own gravity, even its own forms of matter. Between them lies what some call the multiversal ocean. We don't know if travel between bubbles is possible, but the mathematics that describes them suggests that they can brush, overlap, or leave faint resonances in one another. Perhaps what we call strange phenomena, lights in the sky, echoes of déjà vu, dreams of places we've never been, are not mistakes of the mind, but gentle tremors from nearby worlds. To think of other dimensions isn't to abandon reason. It's to recognize that our senses capture only a thin slice of existence. The visible universe is a melody, and we might only hear a few notes. What lies beyond could be entire symphonies, each vibrating in a slightly different key. If space is like a fabric, a portal might be no more mysterious than a crease. Imagine tugging lightly on your bedsheet until two distant corners meet. The sheet hasn't broken. It has simply folded, bringing faraway points together. That's the simplest image of how a wormhole would behave, a tunnel linking two regions of space, or even two universes. In mathematics, it's possible. In engineering, it's beyond us. Yet, every equation begins as a question, and questions have a strange way of finding their answers eventually. Somewhere within this vast possibility, one can pause and wonder, if such doors exist, are they out there in the galaxies, or within us, in the way we perceive reality? The mind itself may be a kind of dimensional traveller, moving through memories, dreams, and imagination as easily as light bends through glass. Each night, when you close your eyes, you drift into places that don't obey the laws of physics, places where time folds, where those you've lost return, where the impossible feels ordinary. Science doesn't dismiss these inner worlds, it simply hasn't mapped them yet. The same curiosity that makes a physicist seek hidden dimensions in the cosmos also drives a poet to explore the hidden corridors of thought. Both are searching for connection, for a doorway between what is known and what might be. So tonight, as you listen, imagine the boundaries around you, your walls, your ceiling, even the air itself, loosening ever so slightly. Not to frighten, but to remind you that reality is not a prison of matter, it's a fluid sea gently humming. Somewhere within that hum, in the quiet resonance between possibility and perception, a door may already be open. You don't need to find it, you only need to listen. If you could lift the roof of the night sky, what would you find? Perhaps the stars would fall like beads of light, and behind them you might glimpse something even grander, a vast mansion of realities, where each room glows with its own laws, its own history, its own version of you. This idea is known as the multiverse, a word that carries both the chill of mathematics and the warmth of wonder. In the simplest sense, the multiverse begins as a question. Why is there only one universe, when the laws of nature seem to allow for countless others? Modern physics, in its attempt to explain the origin of everything, stumbled upon an unexpected truth, that creation might not be a single event, but a pattern that repeats. Long ago, just moments after the Big Bang, space itself may have inflated like a balloon, not smoothly, but unevenly. Some regions stretched faster, while others lagged behind. Each pocket became sealed off by its own speed, creating isolated bubbles of space-time. Inside each bubble, conditions froze into place. Gravity, light, and matter settled into their own unique arrangement. These bubbles drifted apart, never to meet again, yet all belonging to a greater cosmic foam. It's a strange thought, that the universe we see may be just one bubble in an endless froth, each bubble holding its own galaxies and laws. In one, the pull of gravity might be so weak that stars never ignite. In another, so strong that everything collapses into darkness before life can even blink into being. There might be universes filled with light but no matter, or with matter but no light. A cosmic gallery of impossible combinations. The idea seems extravagant, almost too generous for nature. And yet, mathematics keeps whispering that it could be true. When physicists tried to explain the quantum world, the world of particles that behave like both waves and points of energy, they found that every measurement, every choice, might not erase the alternatives. Instead, reality could branch. One outcome happens here, another elsewhere. Not in imagination, but in existence. This is the many worlds view, and if it holds, then every event, every heartbeat, every decision spins off an entire universe of possibilities. You might picture it not as separate spheres floating in space, but as pages in an infinite book, each page a variation of the same story, each written in slightly different ink. And somewhere among those pages, another version of you is reading these same words, wondering the same thing. The multiverse also appears in string theory, a framework that seeks to tie together all forces and particles into a single song of vibration. In this vision, the universe is made of tiny strings of energy, vibrating like violin strings on a cosmic scale. The way each string vibrates decides what it becomes: an electron, a photon, or something far stranger. For the music to make sense, though, there must be more than the 4 dimensions we know. The equations insist on at least 10, sometimes 11. The extra ones aren't wide open like space. They're curled up so tightly that no light can pass through them. Imagine a sheet of paper rolled into a straw so fine that it seems like a line. The paper is still there, you just can't see its depth. In certain corners of physics, these hidden dimensions could act as bridges, linking separate universes or distant regions of ours. It's as if reality itself were a grand cathedral, and each dimension a hallway that bends the light differently. Most of the time, those hallways are sealed, too small, too subtle for us to notice. But under immense conditions, like near a black hole or at the birth of a universe, they might briefly open. If such portals exist, they might not glow or shimmer. They might look utterly ordinary, invisible to our senses, like a mirror reflecting nothing. A door doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes, it's a question that's been waiting for you to ask it. For all its grandeur, the multiverse also carries a quiet implication: that our universe is not special, that the stars we see, the constants that allow life to breathe, the distance between atoms, all of it might be just one of countless arrangements, each as real as the next. Some find this humbling, others find it liberating. If there are infinite universes, then existence itself is endlessly creative. Every possibility has somewhere to belong. It's worth pausing here, in this thought. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that reality isn't a single thread, but a tapestry woven from countless strands. Each moment of your life, each decision, is a crossing point, where the weave might have turned differently. Somewhere in another world you took that other path. You spoke instead of staying silent. You stayed instead of leaving. That version of you still exists, carried by another rhythm of time. And though you'll never meet, perhaps you can sense each other in those quiet moments when the world feels oddly doubled, as if 2 realities briefly overlap. From a cosmic perspective, the multiverse could explain the greatest mystery of all: why our universe seems so finely tuned for life. The delicate balance of gravity, light, and quantum energy feels almost intentional, as if someone had adjusted the dials just right. But if there are countless universes, each with its own settings, then it's not a miracle that we exist. It's simply that we live in the one where existence is possible. The others are silent. In that way, the multiverse doesn't shrink us. It deepens the mystery. It tells us that creation is not a single masterpiece, but a vast gallery, an eternal experiment in being. We may never travel to those other realms, but we carry their echoes within us. Every night when you dream, your mind slips its leash from this particular version of reality and wanders through landscapes that obey no physics we know. Dreams may not be literal universes, but they remind us how easily consciousness can cross borders that seem fixed. So when you look up at the stars, think of them not as dots on a ceiling, but as windows, millions of tiny open doors to rooms beyond rooms. Somewhere, in another version of the cosmos, the same light might be falling differently, painting other skies, on other worlds, beneath other eyes also looking up. And in that endless repetition, there's a kind of comfort. The universe never stops creating new ways to be. Imagine drifting across the silent ocean of the multiverse, where each ripple leads to a new creation. Every universe is a separate island, glowing faintly with its own physics. The air, the colour of the light, even the way matter clings to itself, all of it changes from one island to the next. What would it feel like to stand on one of these other shores, under skies built from unfamiliar rules? In our universe, the constants of nature, the pull of gravity, the charge of the electron, the speed of light, work together like instruments in a perfectly tuned orchestra. If any one note were played too softly or too loud, the melody of a life would collapse into noise. But if the universe is a symphony, then somewhere, among infinite variations, there must be other versions of the song. Some may sound harmonious, others may be dissonant, unsettling, or silent altogether. Let's begin with a world where gravity is weaker than here, so weak that clouds never form into stars. The night sky would be dark, not because it's empty, but because light never had a home to burn from. Gas and dust would drift endlessly, like cosmic mist, never collapsing into the brilliance of suns. There would be no sunrise, no warmth, only an eternal dusk, a world of floating shadows. Now turn to another universe, where gravity is stronger, so strong that space itself trembles under its weight. Matter would crush together before it could ever spread into galaxies. Stars would live brief, violent lives, burning their fuel in an instant, then collapsing into endless darkness. A night sky there would be full of ghosts, stars that have already died, flickering memories of light. In another place, the force that binds atoms together might be weaker. If so, matter would crumble as soon as it formed. Nothing solid could exist, not planets, not air, not even the molecules that make water or flesh. Everything would dissolve into a fine haze of wandering particles, moving like dust motes in eternal twilight. But if that same force were stronger, atoms might hold too tightly. The universe would be a graveyard of dense, rigid matter, diamond-like planets orbiting stars that never flicker. The rain might fall not as water, but as gemstones. You could walk through forests of transparent crystal that scatter the light of two suns. The air would hum faintly as minerals vibrate, carrying music instead of wind. There could be worlds where chemistry itself writes different poetry. On some planets, carbon might not rule. Silicon could take its place, building life that glitters instead of breathes, growing like frost instead of flesh. In seas thick with metal vapor, creatures might glide through molten silver, their bodies flexible and reflective, flickering with the colors of dawn. On another planet, the sky might hold twin suns that rise together, washing the world in two overlapping shadows. The mornings would begin with gold and blue intertwined. The nights would fade through a dozen colors as each sun fell at a different pace. Seasons there would not follow months or years, but the rhythm of two hearts in the sky. You might also find worlds where air is heavy enough to carry whole continents. The ground would float, massive islands adrift in endless skies. Imagine mountains that sail, forests that migrate with the wind. Civilizations could travel by anchoring their cities to these drifting lands, sending messages by letting their homes pass close enough to shout across the clouds. In another universe, water as we know it might never form. The ratio between hydrogen and oxygen could differ slightly, creating strange substitutes, liquids that shimmer in acid hues, rivers that glow faintly from within. Their rain would bite and carve stone into spirals, leaving behind canyons that twist like frozen lightning. And then there might be universes where light moves differently, where it doesn't travel in straight lines but curves gently, looping back on itself. Standing there, you could see the back of your own head in the distance, bathed in the same light that just left your eyes. Time might feel uncertain, more like a circular path than an arrow. Every small shift in physics creates entire worlds of difference. The number that describes the strength of gravity or the charge of a single particle might look meaningless on paper, but it is the key that locks or unlocks entire realities. Even a tiny change in that cosmic code can transform everything we know into something alien, beautiful, or impossible. It's strange to think that in all this diversity, our own universe is not necessarily the best, just the one that works for us. The water we drink, the warmth of sunlight, the breath we take, all of it depends on a balance so delicate it feels almost deliberate. Yet if the multiverse exists, that balance is simply one success among countless experiments. Every universe tries its own version of the rules, and we are living proof that at least one attempt allowed awareness to bloom. From a distance, these differences blur together. You could imagine the multiverse as a vast library, each book written in a different alphabet of physics. In some, the letters of light and gravity spell life. In others, they fade before the first word is complete. But even those silent books matter. They are part of the grand experiment, the cosmic imagination trying every possible sentence. Standing beneath our own stars, it's easy to feel small. But maybe smallness is the point. The universe doesn't need to be centered on us for it to include us. We're not the authors of its rules. We are its readers, learning the language page by page. Each discovery, each question, opens another door, another chance to understand that the cosmos isn't limited by our imagination. Our imagination is limited by the cosmos. So when we speak of strange worlds, we're not describing fantasies, but probabilities waiting their turn. Somewhere, in the infinite mansion of creation, there might be a world where mountains breathe, where light reigns like mist, where time rests between heartbeats instead of running ahead. And perhaps, in a dream or in the flicker of thought, we sometimes catch a whisper from those other rooms. The laws there may be strange, but they remind us of something familiar, the endless creativity of existence itself. When you trace your finger across a map, you can cross oceans in seconds. Paper folds the distance, thought folds it even more. The idea of a wormhole is something like that, a crease in the cosmic fabric, a hidden path where two faraway places touch. If the universe is a great sheet of space and time, a wormhole would be the soft bend where that sheet folds over itself. Einstein's equations allow such curves. They describe space not as an empty stage, but as something alive, an elastic field that stretches and flexes under the weight of stars. The more mass there is, the deeper the curve, and the stronger the pull we call gravity. Black holes are places where that curve grows so steep that even light cannot climb back out. But there is another side to the mathematics, one that whispers of tunnels instead of pits. If gravity can pull the universe inward, perhaps somewhere else it can open outward. A wormhole in that sense would be a bridge. One end could open here, near our sun. The other might bloom light years away, or in another universe altogether. It wouldn't look like the spinning whirlpools of movies. More likely, it would be invisible, smooth, silent. A region where distance itself becomes confused. Step in, and space would reassemble around you in an instant, like a page turning itself inside out. The trouble is that such tunnels, if they exist, are fragile things. The math says they should collapse the moment they form, snapping shut faster than light could pass through. To keep one open, something extraordinary would be required. A substance that pushes instead of pulls, that bends space outward instead of inward. Physicists call it exotic matter, but you can think of it as negative pressure, a kind of anti-gravity breath that holds the tunnel's walls apart. It is purely theoretical. No one has ever seen it, though certain quantum effects hint that the universe might make small traces of it, like bubbles forming on the surface of boiling time. If exotic matter truly exists, it could do more than hold a wormhole open. It could rewrite the geography of the cosmos. A civilization capable of controlling it would not need rockets or sails. They could travel by folding the map itself, stepping between stars as easily as crossing a room. but the energy needed would be staggering, far beyond the reach of any machine we can build. Even the total power of a star might not be enough. So for now, wormholes remain beautiful ghosts in the mathematics, permitted by the rules, denied by the cost. Still, their allure is hard to resist. A wormhole would be the ultimate portal, not breaking the speed of light but sidestepping it. Imagine two distant mountaintops separated by a vast valley. Normally you'd have to climb down, cross the valley, and climb back up. A wormhole would be a bridge hanging directly between their peaks. The traveller still obeys every law of physics, but the road itself has changed shape. Some scientists think the early universe may have been riddled with such bridges, tiny tunnels formed by violent fluctuations when space was newborn. Most would have evaporated almost instantly, yet some might have stretched and cooled, hidden among the folds of galaxies like forgotten threads. If so, the universe could still be laced with secret passages, far too small for us to see, yet silently connecting regions that look, to us, forever apart. The same equations that describe wormholes also describe something else: entanglement, the invisible connection between quantum particles. Two particles can become linked so that a change in one instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart they drift. This isn't a message travelling faster than light. It's as if the two particles share a single identity stretched across space. Some physicists suspect that entanglement and wormholes are the same phenomenon seen from different scales. The tiniest bridges in the quantum world could be the seeds of the grand ones that tie the cosmos together. A thought, a choice, a flicker of awareness, all might be subtle ripples passing through this invisible web. It's possible that black holes themselves are gateways of a kind. Inside their horizons, the rules of physics seem to lose their voice. Matter collapses toward what we call a singularity, a point where density becomes infinite and the equations stop making sense. But perhaps the problem is not that the rules break, but that we are reading them from the wrong side of the page. Some theories imagine that beyond the singularity lies a new region of space, even a new universe, expanding as ours once did. In that picture, every black hole could be a seed of creation, and what falls into one world might blossom in another. Standing on the edge of such a thought is dizzying. The mind wants to ask, could we survive the journey? The answer, for now, leans toward no. The gravitational tides near a wormhole mouth would stretch and crush matter mercilessly. Radiation would burn. Time itself would twist into knots. Yet impossibility has never stopped curiosity. It only sharpens it. Each new discovery begins as a whisper against the noise of certainty. Wormholes also tempt philosophers. If space can fold, what about time? Could a bridge connect not just different places but different moments? The equations don't forbid it. A closed loop in space-time could, in theory, allow a traveller to leave, circle through the curve and return before they departed. Whether the universe allows such paradoxes is another question. Stephen Hawking once proposed a kind of cosmic safeguard. He called it chronology protection. In simpler words, reality may protect its own timeline the way skin heals a wound, closing loops before they can unravel the body of causality. And yet, when you think softly enough, even that feels like an act of mercy. Maybe the universe is reminding us that not every door must be opened, that some mysteries exist to preserve the rhythm of existence. To know they might be there is wonder enough. So when you hear the phrase wormhole, don't picture machinery or danger. Picture a gentle curve in the weave of space, like a hammock strung between stars. It's a place where geometry forgets to be rigid, where distance loses its meaning for a heartbeat. Perhaps the same principle lives in us, in the way two minds can connect across vast silence, or how a memory can bridge decades in an instant. The universe seems to love shortcuts, though it hides them well. If one day we learn to shape such paths, the first traveller may not step into a roaring tunnel, but into stillness. a quiet so deep it feels like thought itself. And on the other side, there might not be another world waiting, but another perspective, another way of seeing what was always there, the continuous thread of space, time, and consciousness folded delicately upon itself. At the heart of almost every galaxy, there rests something that doesn't quite belong to the word object. It doesn't shine, it doesn't reflect, and it doesn't move the way other things move. It simply waits, quiet, unblinking, immense. We call it a black hole, though the name is misleading. It isn't so much a hole as it is a boundary, a place where the universe stops explaining itself. A black hole begins simply enough. Take a star many times heavier than our sun. Let it burn through its fuel until nothing inside can hold up the weight of its own gravity. When that final balance breaks, the star collapses inward. Its surface falls toward its centre faster and faster until the space around it folds so sharply that not even light can escape. In that moment, the star's story ends, but something new begins. Physicists describe a black hole through a few soft ideas. Around it lies a region called the event horizon. Think of it as a shoreline made not of sand but of time. Once you cross that line, every path you can take bends inward. You could fire the fastest rocket, shout the brightest beam of light, and still you would fall, drawn toward the unseen. The event horizon is not solid. It's simply the point where space leans too far to climb back. Beyond it, the mind can only imagine. The equations that describe gravity continue inward until they reach a place of no return. The singularity, a point where matter is squeezed into something infinitely dense. Infinite is a word science rarely uses comfortably. It's not a real location, it's a signal that our understanding runs out. At the singularity, our maps end. The fabric of space and time folds so completely that distance, direction, even sequence lose meaning. But for all their mystery, black holes aren't abstract anymore. We have seen their shadows. In April of 2019, a global network of telescopes called the Event Horizon Telescope captured an image of the giant black hole at the heart of the galaxy M87. It looked like a ring of fire, light swirling around a dark centre, a window into gravity's final art. That glowing ring is not the hole itself, but the light of matter circling the edge of no return. It spins there at nearly the speed of light, heated to unimaginable temperatures, whispering the last fragments of energy before vanishing. When we think of a black hole, it's tempting to picture destruction. Yet it is also creation, in its own silent way. The energy it releases as matter falls inward can outshine entire galaxies. Jets of particles shoot out from its poles, stretching for light years through interstellar darkness. What goes in may vanish, but the effect ripples outward across the universe. The black hole is both a devourer and a sculptor, carving the shape of galaxies themselves. There is another, quieter paradox hiding inside these cosmic abysses, the way time behaves near them. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, gravity and time are inseparable. The stronger the gravity, the slower time flows. Near a black hole, space curves so steeply that time itself stretches thin. If you could hover safely just outside the event horizon, an impossible wish, but let's imagine, you would see the universe around you race ahead. Minutes for you could be centuries elsewhere. The stars would shift, galaxies would drift, while your own heartbeat slowed to the rhythm of gravity's breath. To someone watching you from far away, it would look as if you never crossed the horizon at all. You would appear frozen at its edge, fading slowly as your light redshifts into darkness. In their frame of time, you never fall in. In your own, the fall happens quickly. Both are true. The universe, it seems, keeps multiple versions of every story. There's a gentle irony in that. Black holes may be the darkest places, yet they illuminate the nature of reality itself. They teach us that space and time are not separate ingredients, but threads of one tapestry. Pull on one and the other shifts. They also teach us humility. At their core, the laws we trust, the equations of gravity, the rules of quantum physics, begin to disagree. It's as if two languages of the cosmos suddenly stop translating each other. Somewhere inside that conflict, we might find the next great discovery. Stephen Hawking once added another quiet twist to this picture. He proposed that black holes are not completely black. At the edges of the event horizon, tiny fluctuations in quantum fields cause pairs of particles to appear and vanish, like sparks of uncertainty. Occasionally, one particle escapes before its partner is swallowed. This slow leakage is known as Hawking radiation. It means that over billions of years, a black hole can gradually lose its mass, fading into nothing. Even the universe's darkest vaults eventually sigh their last. Hawking's idea was a bridge between two worlds: the smooth geometry of relativity and the jittery dance of quantum physics. It told us that even emptiness has energy, and that the universe keeps no perfect secrets. Every shadow hums faintly with information. Some physicists go further. They ask whether black holes might not be endings at all, but transitions, bridges to other universes, where what falls here emerges elsewhere, reborn. In that picture, each black hole could be a seed, its collapse giving birth to a new expansion on the other side. It's an idea impossible to test, but deeply poetic. The universe may recycle itself endlessly, life and light flowing from one cosmos to another like breath through lungs that never tire. Even without such speculation, black holes already connect us to wonder. Every atom in your body feels their influence, however faintly. The fabric of gravity that shapes our galaxy, its spiral arms, its stability, exists because these silent anchors hold it together. Without them, the Milky Way would unravel into drifting clouds. If you close your eyes tonight and imagine the deepest silence possible somewhere beyond even that, a black hole waits. Not hostile, not malicious, simply inevitable. It is the pause between notes, the stillness that makes the symphony whole. In its presence, matter forgets its form, light forgets its direction, and time forgets itself. And yet, within that forgetting, the universe remembers what it is made of: pure, unbroken mystery. If space can bend, can time do the same? The question seems to come from fantasy, but it hides at the very centre of modern physics. Einstein once showed that time is not an invisible river flowing apart from the world. It is woven into the same fabric as space. Together, they make a single cloth that stretches, ripples, and curves. When you walk, you don't just move through space, you drift through time as well. Every heartbeat, every step is a tiny migration through this vast four-dimensional sea. In our daily lives, time feels steady. We measure it with clocks and calendars, as if it were a train moving smoothly forward. But that train, under the right conditions, can slow down, or even appear to stop. Imagine two people, one on Earth, one orbiting near a black hole. To the traveller circling the abyss, each second stretches slightly longer. The pull of gravity thickens time like honey. When the traveller returns home, she finds that more years have passed for those who stayed behind than for herself. It's not magic, only geometry. The same fabric of space and time stretched by mass and motion. This slowing of time has been measured on a smaller scale, with clocks flown on airplanes and satellites. Their rhythms drift ever so slightly from those on the ground. It's almost poetic. Even at the edge of our atmosphere, time hums a slightly different tune. If we could somehow reach the speed of light, a journey no living thing can survive, time for us would appear to freeze entirely, while outside the universe would continue to age. To travel far into the future, one needs only to move very fast or stay near something very massive. The equations of relativity are clear. Motion and gravity are the two hands that can knead time into new shapes. Going backward, however, is another story. The past is stubborn. The same formulas that let us see forward into possibility seem to guard the road behind with paradox. If you could step into yesterday, would you change it? What happens if you go back and stop your own birth, or speak a word that alters history? Logic curls in on itself. These are not just philosophical riddles. They are warnings built into the structure of cause and effect. Physicists have tried to tame these paradoxes with gentle ideas. One of them is called self-consistency, a notion that the universe protects its timeline the way the body heals a wound. In this view, if you travel to the past, every action you take must already fit the story that led you there. You can't break history because your presence was always part of it. A bullet fired at your grandfather would miss by some coincidence. A message sent backward would only cause the future you already remember. The script would hold, unwrinkled. Another possibility suggests that the universe is not a single track, but a vast branching forest. Each choice, each quantum flicker, divides reality into new pathways. When you travel to the past and make a change, you do not rewrite your own timeline. You slide into another, one where your change has already taken root. The version of you that made the journey remains in the original world. The version that acts lives in the new one. Both exist, unaware of each other, like reflections on opposite sides of a river. It's a graceful solution, though it multiplies reality beyond counting. The idea of time as a thread, elastic, stretching, looping, fits well with how nature behaves in subtler ways. At the quantum level, particles don't move in straight lines or follow single destinies. They shimmer across possibilities, only settling into one when observed. Some experiments even suggest that decisions made in the present can influence how particles behaved in the past, as if cause and effect were partners in a slow dance rather than a strict order. It doesn't mean we can rewrite yesterday, but it hints that the separation between before and after might be softer than we think. In this landscape of paradoxes and probabilities, time travel becomes less a machine and more a mirror, a way of seeing how fragile our sense of order truly is. Even without stepping into a time capsule, we already experience echoes of this elasticity. A single moment of fear can last a lifetime. A joyful hour can vanish like breath on glass. Memory folds the past into the present. Imagination stretches the present into the future. We are, in a quiet sense, time travelers already. Consider the ancient light reaching you tonight from the stars. Some of it began its journey before there were human eyes to receive it. When you look up, you are seeing the past alive in the present, a conversation billions of years old. The glow of the Andromeda galaxy left its source long before our species took its first breath. In that shimmer, time travel is not theory. It's simply how sight works across the vastness of space. But we can dream further. Suppose one day we learn to fold time as easily as space, creating loops and corridors through which we could wander. Would we recognize ourselves in those other ages? Would we even belong there? The future is built upon everything that has come before. To disturb it may be to unmake our own foundation. Maybe that is why time protects itself, not out of cruelty, but out of care. And yet, in another sense, we have been moving through time's corridors since the universe began. From the first expansion after the Big Bang, every atom has been carried along this river, drifting through eons toward now. We are passengers on the current, each heartbeat another small push downstream. Time travel, then, is not a question of whether we can escape the river, but how deeply we can understand its flow. Imagine floating in that current, watching moments rise and sink around you. Childhood, love, loss, discovery. They appear like islands, then fade beneath the surface. You can't return to them physically, but you carry their reflections. Perhaps that is the true form of travel through time, not movement, but memory. The past survives because consciousness keeps it alive. replaying it like light trapped in amber. Science will continue to ask whether the loops and tunnels of theory can ever become roads. But in the quiet hours, when equations rest, time feels less like a puzzle and more like a companion. It walks beside us, changes with us, holds our stories, and teaches us that even the smallest instant is infinite when you look at it closely enough. Maybe that's the universe's gentle secret, that time isn't a wall to break through, but a fabric we already inhabit completely, stitched together by our awareness of before, now, and what comes after. Long before laboratories and equations, before the word relativity ever existed, people dreamed of slipping through time. The idea is as old as storytelling itself. Every culture has a myth of someone who left the ordinary flow of days and returned changed, sometimes older, sometimes younger, sometimes no longer belonging anywhere. These are the first travellers across the fragile thread of moments, walking through the imagination toward what might one day become physics. One of the most haunting stories comes from the dawn of the internet age, when an anonymous figure appeared in early online forums under the name John Titor. He claimed to be a soldier from the year 2036, sent back to retrieve an old computer crucial to rebuilding society after a future war. His messages read like diary entries from a nearby tomorrow, details of his time displacement unit, sketches of curved steel frames, warnings about choices humanity was about to make. To those who read his words, it felt strangely plausible, his tone calm, almost weary, as though he were writing from the fatigue of too much history. When none of his predictions came true, the story faded, but something lingered. People wanted to believe that perhaps, in another branch of reality, he had been telling the truth. Then there is the mystery of the man from Taured. The year was 1954. A traveller arrived at a Japanese airport carrying documents from a country that didn't exist. His passport, currency and accent all pointed to a nation called Taured, somewhere between France and Spain. The customs officers, puzzled but polite, placed him in a hotel overnight while they investigated. By morning he was gone, vanished from a locked room, his records deleted as if he had never been there. Skeptics called it a fabrication. Believers whispered of a man who had stepped sideways, from one version of Earth into another, where the map was drawn differently. Photographs too have played their part in the myth of temporal wanderers. There's a black and white image taken in 1941 at the reopening of a bridge in Canada. Among the crowd stands a man wearing modern-looking sunglasses and a printed t-shirt, holding what appears to be a compact camera decades ahead of its time. To some eyes he is proof of the impossible. To others, merely an unusually dressed bystander. Yet when you look closely at that picture, the frozen laughter, the sunlight, the man who seems slightly out of rhythm, you feel the peculiar unease of seeing a shadow where it shouldn't be. Another tale tells of Rudolph Fentz, a man said to have appeared suddenly in Times Square in the 1950s, dressed in Victorian clothing, startled and confused by the cars and lights. Moments later, he was struck by a taxi. In his pockets, police found a watch and coins minted nearly a century earlier, all untarnished. Later research traced the story to a piece of fiction, but by then the idea had already joined the folklore of temporal accidents, moments when history seems to hiccup. Artists have added their own whispers to this gallery of anomalies. In an 1860 painting by Ferdinand Georg Waldmüller, a young woman walks a sunlit path, eyes fixed on a small object in her hands. To modern viewers, it looks uncannily like a smartphone. Experts assure us it is only a prayer book, yet it's hard not to feel the chill of recognition, as though someone long ago had brushed against the edges of our present. Then there is Pellegrino Ernetti, a 20th century Italian priest who claimed to have built the chronovisor, a device that could tune into the frequencies of past events, projecting them as living scenes. He said he had witnessed ancient Rome, even the crucifixion of Christ. No evidence ever surfaced, but his tale touched a deep desire that the past, like light, never truly disappears, only travels beyond our reach, waiting for the right receiver. Among those who tried to approach the question scientifically was Ronald Mallet, a theoretical physicist whose fascination with time began in grief. When he lost his father as a child, he promised himself he would find a way to see him again. Years later, his research explored how a circulating ring of laser light could twist space-time, creating a miniature loop in which information might travel backward. The concept was elegant, light carrying time within its spiral, like a thread winding through a clock's gears. Yet the energies required remain unimaginably large, and the dream remains where it began, in hope. Mallet's story reminds us that the pursuit of time travel isn't just about physics, it's about love, memory, and the human refusal to let go. Each of these stories, true or not, reveals something about us. We want to believe that time is not a prison but a landscape, and that a determined heart could find a path through it. Whether through folklore, photography, or theory, every account begins the same way, with someone stepping out of the expected rhythm of seconds and discovering that the world no longer matches their watch. Modern science, for all its precision, has not yet found a way to build a working time machine, but it has found echoes of possibility. The geometry of space-time allows loops under certain conditions, as if the fabric could twist back on itself like a ribbon. In theory, with enough energy and the right alignment of gravity and motion, such loops could exist. But theory is a polite word for imagination under constraint. We can draw the shapes. We cannot yet make them real. Perhaps that is why the legends endure. They are emotional experiments, testing the edges of our understanding. They ask what we would change if given the chance, what we would risk to touch a lost moment. The question is never about machines. It's about meaning. Every one of us has felt a version of it, the sudden ache of nostalgia so sharp it feels like travel, or the eerie sense that you have already stood in this place before, spoken these words, felt this wind. Those are the gentler forms of time travel, the ones we practice every day. Memory carries us backward, imagination carries us forward. Together they form a bridge across the unknown, more reliable than any device built from steel. If time travel were ever achieved, it might not look dramatic at all. There would be no glowing portals or thunderclaps, only a quiet adjustment, like a breath taken differently. The traveller might step into a world that feels familiar but slightly off, a new melody played on an old instrument, and maybe that has already happened. Perhaps those we call ghosts, visions, or strangers from forgotten eras are simply travellers who went a little too far and couldn't find their way back to the measure of our time. What draws us to these tales is not the machinery, but the longing they express. The hope that the past is not gone, that love and loss are reversible states, that tomorrow is not a wall but a horizon we might cross. Whether carved in myth or whispered in scientific halls, the dream of time travel continues because it touches the oldest wish in the human heart, to revisit, to repair, to relive. And maybe, in a quiet sense, that wish is already fulfilled. Every story, every memory, every act of imagination sends us wandering through the corridors of time, changing nothing but understanding everything just a little more. We move through the moments we cannot return to, yet somehow they move through us as well. In that exchange, time itself becomes less of a boundary and more of a companion, an endless conversation between what was, what is, and what might still be waiting beyond the next heartbeat. If space and time are threads of one grand fabric, then hyperspace is the hidden weave beneath it, a realm where all the threads might be gathered, twisted, or rewoven in new patterns. The word itself sounds like fantasy, a term borrowed from old science fiction tales where ships vanish into glowing tunnels and reappear across galaxies. Yet behind the fiction lies a whisper of real geometry, born from the mathematics that describe the universe. Hyperspace is not a place, but a way the cosmos might fold itself to shorten impossible distances. To imagine it, take a simple sheet of paper. Draw 2 dots at opposite ends, one for where you are, the other for where you want to go. Normally, the only path between them is a straight line, long and patient. But if you lift the paper and bend it until the 2 dots touch, suddenly the journey disappears. That touching point, that instant bridge, is the idea of hyperspace made visible. The paper still exists in 2 dimensions, yet you have used a 3rd dimension to connect its surface. If our universe has more than 3 dimensions, perhaps we could do the same, folding reality itself to bring distant stars into a single breath. Physics does not forbid this. In fact, certain theories almost insist on it. String theory, the elegant attempt to unite all forces and particles under one rhythm, requires extra dimensions, tiny hidden directions curled up beyond perception. These curled dimensions could provide corridors through which gravity and other forces leak or resonate, creating effects we sense but cannot see. Hyperspace, then, might not be separate from our world at all. It could be the foundation on which our familiar space rests, invisible only because we're too large, too slow, too bound by our own 3-dimensional habits. For now, our reach into these deeper layers of reality is symbolic rather than physical. But at the edge of Europe, beneath the quiet fields between France and Switzerland, humanity built an instrument that brushes against those frontiers. It's called the Large Hadron Collider, or simply the LHC, a circular tunnel stretching for more than 20 kilometers underground, where beams of subatomic particles race around in opposite directions before colliding at nearly the speed of light. The collisions are so brief they last less than a heartbeat, yet in that instant, energy and matter mingle as they did in the first moments after creation. The purpose of the collider is not destruction but revelation. Each impact breaks matter open, letting scientists glimpse the smaller symmetries that compose it. In 2012, it revealed the Higgs boson, the elusive particle that grants mass to others, the note that completes nature's scale. But among its many goals lies another more speculative one: to test whether extra dimensions might leave fingerprints in the data. Some theories predict that if those hidden dimensions are real, tiny gravitational echoes might appear during collisions, subtle deviations in how energy disperses. Detecting them would be like hearing a faint chord beneath the main melody of existence. Rumours once spread that the collider could create miniature black holes or open rifts in space-time. The truth is gentler. Any black holes formed would be unimaginably small, smaller than atoms, and would evaporate instantly in a faint shimmer of radiation long before they could harm anything. Even nature performs similar experiments each day when cosmic rays strike our atmosphere with far greater energy. The universe, it seems, has been running its own version of the LHC for billions of years, and it is still here. Still, there's something poetic about that human-made ring beneath the Earth, a circle of magnets and vacuum that mirrors the cycles of stars above. It is our way of asking the universe its oldest questions with new instruments. Each beam of particles is like a note flung into the darkness, hoping for an answer. What we are really colliding, perhaps, is ignorance against curiosity. If hyperspace exists, it might not reveal itself through explosions or tunnels of light. It could emerge quietly, as a pattern hidden in the numbers, or as a gentle anomaly in gravity's pull. We might find that what we call space is only a thin film floating on a deeper ocean of geometry. In that sense, the LHC and other experiments are not trying to punch holes in the universe, but to listen for the faint waves that roll beneath the visible surface. Some scientists use the term brain, short for membrane, to describe our universe in higher dimensional models. Picture an enormous sheet suspended in a wider void, with other sheets drifting nearby, each one its own cosmos. If 2 brains ever brushed against each other, the collision could release a surge of energy vast enough to resemble a new Big Bang. In that speculative vision, our universe itself may have been born from such a gentle cosmic contact, a ripple in hyperspace echoing outward until it became the stars and atoms we know. Even without equations, the metaphor is beautiful. It suggests that reality may be layered, not unlike the pages of a book. We live on one page, reading our story in linear order, but countless other pages are stacked around us, filled with their own words. Every so often, perhaps, a spark passes through the paper, an intuition, a dream, a flash of déjà vu, and for an instant, we sense the neighbouring stories pressing close. What the collider and theories of hyperspace remind us is that knowledge itself is a form of travel. We may not yet have the power to fold the stars closer, but we're already bending the boundaries of what is imaginable. Each new discovery is a small warp in the fabric of understanding, shortening the distance between mystery and meaning. Maybe one day, when our technology and our wisdom grow side by side, we will learn to slip gently through these hidden folds. Not by tearing the universe open, but by harmonizing with it, tuning our own frequency to the rhythm of its deeper dimensions, the way a singer matches pitch with a resonant chamber. Perhaps travel through hyperspace will not feel like motion at all, but like a change in awareness, as if the universe suddenly exhales and welcomes us into another of its rooms. Until then, the collider continues to hum beneath the earth, a quiet heartbeat of inquiry. Each pulse sends light and matter spinning, not to destroy but to understand. And somewhere between the whirl of particles and the hush of infinity, we can almost hear the question it keeps asking. What lies beneath the fabric of what we know, and how many layers deep does wonder go? There are places on Earth where the air feels different, where sound seems to bend, time seems to loosen, and the world carries a quiet pressure that makes people whisper. These are sometimes called thin places, as if the curtain between what we know and what we don't has worn delicate there, letting the unseen shine through for a moment before closing again. Every culture has a name for them. The Celts spoke of thresholds where the mortal world brushed against the spirit realm, and travellers felt their hearts tremble as if something had passed through them unseen. In modern stories, these places appear in another form: haunted battlefields, mysterious lights, stretches of road where time disappears for a few unaccounted minutes. Science listens to these tales carefully, not to dismiss them, but to find the patterns hidden in the haze of wonder. One such place lies in Pennsylvania, where the fields of Gettysburg still hum with the echoes of 1863. Thousands of lives ended there, and locals say that sometimes when the fog settles, you can hear the faint clash of weapons or see the grey outline of soldiers walking through the mist. Visitors have described cameras failing, batteries draining, or a sudden drop in temperature as if the air itself were remembering. Perhaps it's imagination, stirred by sorrow. But perhaps just for a breath, time stumbles, and a fragment of the past bleeds into the present, a short overlap between two layers of history. Across the Atlantic, in a quiet Spanish village, another kind of echo emerged on the floor of a small house. In 1971, a family in Belmez de la Moraleda discovered that strange human faces had appeared in the concrete beneath their kitchen. Eyes, noses, mouths, uncanny and lifelike. When they tried to scrub them away, new ones formed. Scientists and skeptics visited, some calling it a hoax, others suggesting chemical reactions in the lime. Yet the faces persisted for decades, changing expression, fading, reappearing. The locals came to call them the Belme faces. Whether trick or truth, the mystery endures because it feels like consciousness itself had seeped into the walls, memory made visible, emotion fossilized in stone. Then there are stories that belong not to houses or battlefields, but to the open road. Travellers speak of stretches of highway where time seems to slip. Two friends driving through the desert at night may lose track of an hour without leaving the road, arriving far sooner or later than their clocks allow. Sometimes they recall a patch of glowing mist or a moment when the world went utterly silent. Scientists suggest fatigue, monotony, or the way the brain compresses memory when frightened. But still, the thought lingers. What if, for a few seconds, their car drifted through a fold in time, a place where one timeline brushed against another, and they crossed unknowingly from one to the next? There are homes where footsteps echo in empty halls, where lights flicker without cause. The word poltergeist means noisy spirit, but modern psychology might call it a form of subconscious expression. Stress, grief, or guilt can make the mind externalize its turmoil. Objects fall, sounds appear, as if emotion itself were rearranging the air. And yet, perhaps those disturbances are not merely inside us. If consciousness can shape the body through heartbeat and breath, who is to say it cannot shape the space around it too? Physics, in its own quiet way, allows the possibility of thinness. At the smallest scales, the universe is never still. Space is filled with fleeting energies that appear and vanish faster than thought, tiny ripples of existence that shimmer in and out of being. It is not unthinkable that such fluctuations might occasionally synchronize with larger structures, walls, weather, even human emotion, creating brief misalignments in the rhythm of reality. We would not notice them as equations or waves. We would feel them as chills, whispers, or moments when time itself exhales. People often describe these experiences with the language of emotion: awe, dread, peace, sadness. It's as though the border between matter and meaning thins for a moment, and we become aware of something vast pressing against the fragile window of perception. Science may eventually find the mechanisms: electromagnetic fields, infrasound, psychological expectation, but understanding does not erase wonder. Even if a haunting were proven to be caused by vibrations in stone or flickers in light, the deeper truth remains: the universe remembers. Memory is written not only in minds but in landscapes. The stones of an ancient temple hold the warmth of 1,000 dawns. The ocean carries the pulse of forgotten storms. When people walk through places layered with history, they are walking through fields of stored experience, patterns imprinted on the molecules themselves. Perhaps ghosts, in the gentlest sense, are not spirits trapped in suffering, but memories replaying through matter, like old songs caught in the groove of a record that the earth keeps turning. And yet there are moments that defy even that softness of explanation. A figure seen in two places at once, a voice calling a name before the phone rings, a house where dreams and waking seem to merge. Each story may have its own answer, but taken together they sketch a pattern, a reminder that perception is not an absolute wall. Our senses are tuned for survival, not completeness. What we call paranormal might simply be the normal we're not yet built to perceive. Think of it this way. Reality is like a great radio spectrum, most of which we cannot hear. We live tuned to one frequency, the band where sunlight glows and voices travel, but once in a while, the dial drifts. We catch a whisper from another channel, a faint melody that shouldn't be there. For a heartbeat, we listen across dimensions. If you have ever stood in a place that felt charged, a battlefield, a cathedral, a forest clearing at dusk, you have felt the weight of collective attention. Millions of eyes, prayers, fears, and hopes may have touched that soil before you. That concentration of emotion over centuries might change the texture of the air. Perhaps consciousness itself leaves footprints. Whether the cause is electromagnetic, psychological, or something yet unnamed, the feeling is the same. It is the hush that falls before you enter a sacred site. It is the goosebumps that rise when you sense you're not alone. In those thin places, the world feels permeable, as though the light around you remembers other stories running parallel to your own. The skeptic and the believer stand side by side here, both staring into the same fog. One sees coincidence, the other sees continuity. Both, in their own way, are right. What matters is not proving one over the other, but honouring the experience, the way it slows the breath, sharpens the senses, and reminds us that existence may be deeper than our definitions. So the next time you feel that faint shiver of something unseen, don't rush to name it. Pause. Let the moment unfold. Whether it's static in the brain or an echo from another dimension, it is part of the same grand mystery. The hum of reality resonating through you, reminding you that the universe is never quite done revealing itself. There are mysteries in the universe that do not unfold in the sky or under the microscope, but inside the space behind our eyes. The mind itself might be the most sensitive instrument we have, capable of detecting not only the obvious world, but faint echoes of something larger. It receives signals not just through the five senses, but through the quiet language of intuition, memory, and dreams. If the cosmos has more dimensions than we can see, perhaps the first doorway to them is already open within us. Consider the strange phenomenon called the Mandela effect. Many people around the world remember an event that never happened: Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s, long before he actually passed away. Others recall small differences that seem impossible to explain: the spelling of a childhood logo, the colour of a familiar object, even the lines of a well-known film. Rationally, we call these false memories, shared misrememberings created by culture and conversation. Yet the scale of agreement is unsettling. Why do so many minds choose the same mistake? Perhaps memory itself, like space-time, can bend. Perhaps now and then the web of collective recollection catches a glimmer from another thread of reality running close beside ours, a neighbouring timeline reflected faintly in the mirror of thought. Memory is not a recording, it's a reconstruction. Each time we remember, the brain rebuilds the moment from fragments: sight, sound, feeling, smell. The more often we revisit a memory, the more it changes, coloured by who we have become since it happened. To remember is to rewrite. Neuroscientists can trace the patterns, the small electrical tides that move through the brain, like the shimmer of light through water. But the exact boundary between recollection and imagination remains blurred. The act of remembering may be more creative than we realise, a form of dreaming while awake. If so, then perhaps our memories sometimes wander across the invisible borders of possibility, borrowing details from nearby versions of the world. Another glimpse into those borders comes through experiences near death. People who have come close to the edge often describe a tunnel of light, a sense of leaving the body, a vision of loved ones waiting in a place of profound peace. Science explains these visions gently. When the brain is starved of oxygen, patterns of electrical activity form in the visual cortex, creating the sensation of a narrowing tunnel. Neurochemicals flood the mind, softening fear and flooding consciousness with a final vivid calm. Yet even knowing that, the experience retains its power. For those who return, life never feels the same. They describe an awareness of being both inside and beyond themselves, as if consciousness had slipped free from time for a while. Perhaps near-death experiences are not evidence of another world, but of another state, a way the mind can perceive reality when stripped of its normal filters. The body is a lens, consciousness is the light that passes through it. Under extreme conditions, that lens might refract in unexpected ways, showing us glimpses of dimensions usually hidden from view. What if those tunnels of light are not metaphors but literal perceptions of the brain, trying to map its return to the source of awareness itself? Then there is the small, everyday cousin of this experience: déjà vu. You're walking into a cafe you've never seen, yet every sound, every scent feels familiar. A second later, the feeling dissolves, leaving a faint sense of wonder. Psychologists describe déjà vu as a short circuit of memory, an overlap between the brain's pathways for the present and the past. It's as if the mechanism that says now and the one that says then fire at the same time, making the new moment feel remembered. But some philosophers see it differently. They suggest that déjà vu might be the mind brushing against an alternate version of itself. Two timelines briefly synchronized before drifting apart. For an instant, your consciousness stands at the crossroads of two realities that rhyme. Whatever the cause, these phenomena remind us that perception is not solid ground. It is an ever-shifting bridge between mind and matter, built from electricity, chemistry, and something we cannot yet name. The quantum world, the level of the unimaginably small, operates in ways that sound eerily similar to our mental life. Particles exist in multiple states until observed. They seem to communicate across vast distances, acting together as if connected by invisible threads. Maybe consciousness works in the same way, entangled not just with itself, but with the wider field of existence. Observation changes what is observed. Attention shapes reality. In this sense, the mind may already be a dimensional traveller. Every thought leaps between past and future. Every dream dissolves the limits of space. You can sit still and yet wander through entire worlds inside you, places made of memory, hope, and imagination. These inner landscapes follow their own physics, where emotion becomes gravity and ideas orbit each other like planets. Perhaps these private universes are not separate from the outer one, but reflections of it. Smaller waves on the same sea. Even the simplest acts of perception hold a touch of mystery. When you look at a tree, light bounces off its leaves and enters your eyes, but what you see exists nowhere but in your mind. The colour green is not in the leaf. It's in the way your brain translates wavelengths into sensation. You never see the world directly. You see its echo painted onto the canvas of awareness. If consciousness is part of reality, then every perception is an interaction between dimensions, the physical and the mental, matter and meaning entwined. There's a gentle possibility in that thought, that consciousness is not confined within the skull, but diffused through space itself like a field. When you feel someone's gaze before they speak, when you think of a friend and they call moments later, maybe these are tiny ripples in that shared field. A reminder that awareness is not private but continuous. The brain may be less a container for thought and more a receiver tuned to the frequency of being. The more we learn about the mind, the more it resembles the universe it observes. Vast, self-reflective, full of invisible connections. Quantum physics and neuroscience might one day meet not in equations but in empathy, in the understanding that every observer is part of what is being observed. So if the mind is a dimensional sensor, it may not reveal other worlds by opening new eyes, but by closing the old ones, by stillness, by attention, by awe. In moments of deep quiet, we sometimes feel larger than ourselves, as though the boundary between inner and outer has dissolved. The world breathes, and we breathe with it. That may be the most ancient kind of perception, the awareness that we are woven from the same fabric we are trying to understand. Some doors don't stand in laboratories or in equations. They lie hidden in the earth itself, in places where stone, wind, and water have been shaped by time and touched by countless human eyes. These are the earthly portals, landscapes so layered with story and emotion that they feel alive, as if the planet itself were breathing between worlds. The most famous of these is perhaps the Bermuda Triangle, that vast stretch of Atlantic bounded roughly by Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. For generations, sailors have whispered of ships vanishing without distress calls, of compasses spinning, of pilots losing, orientation under cloudless skies. The list of disappearances is long, though many are now explained. Sudden storms, mechanical failure, human error magnified by myth. Yet the legend endures, because even explanations can't erase the strangeness of that part of the sea. Scientists have offered gentle theories. The ocean floor there releases pockets of methane gas that can alter the density of water, reducing a ship's buoyancy so quickly it might sink without a trace. Magnetic anomalies can briefly confuse navigational instruments, bending their needles toward invisible norths. But there is also something poetic in how these rational ideas blend with the aura of mystery. The triangle is not a hole in the world, it's a mirror reflecting our fascination with the unknown. When people disappear there, the loss feels mythic, as if the ocean had opened its palm and swallowed them whole. Perhaps that's why we call it a triangle, not for geometry, but for symbolism. 3 points forming a window through which we project our oldest fear, being lost between the seen and unseen. Far from the ocean, in the dry red heart of Arizona, the land seems to breathe in spirals. Here lie the Sedona vortexes, places where visitors say the air feels charged, where trees twist against the wind as if responding to invisible currents. Scientists studying the region find nothing supernatural, only magnetic minerals and natural geomagnetic variations. But even skeptics admit that Sedona carries a strange serenity. Painters and writers flock there seeking inspiration. Hikers describe tingling sensations or sudden calm. Whether it's ions in the air, light scattering through iron-rich rock, or the psychological effect of beauty too vast to comprehend, Sedona functions as a modern shrine to the mystery of perception. It reminds us that wonder itself is a kind of portal, and that entering it changes the traveller. Across the ocean stands Stonehenge, the circle of monoliths rising from the Salisbury Plain. Each stone weighs as much as 40 tons, set in alignment with the solstice sun. On the longest day of the year, dawn spills through the archways with a precision that defies accident. Archaeologists can trace the quarry sources, the ancient engineering, even the bones of those who built and visited it. Yet the purpose remains open. Was it a temple, a calendar, a meeting place of tribes, or all of these bound together by a shared reverence for the sky? Standing among those stones, one feels time folding gently. The light that touches them each morning has touched them for 5,000 years. Their shadow marks not just hours, but centuries. In that sense, Stonehenge is more than a monument. It's a hinge in time, a doorway through which the ancient gaze still meets ours. And then there is the legend of Aramu Muru, hidden high in the Peruvian Andes. There, a flat wall of rose-coloured stone bears a large carved doorway, a rectangular recess leading nowhere. The local Aymara people call it Puerta de Hayumarca, the Gate of the Gods. Stories say that long ago a priest carried a golden disc of the sun and pressed it into the niche. The stone shimmered, opened, and swallowed him. He was said to have entered a world of light, never to return. Modern visitors describe feelings of dizziness, warmth, or calm when they touch the rock. Scientists explain it as suggestion, the power of myth to shape sensation. But even the most rational observer cannot ignore how the stone seems to hum in the thin mountain air, how its doorway frames the stars at night as if inviting something through. Each of these sites shares a certain resonance, part geology, part psychology, part memory. The human body is sensitive to more than we realise. Tiny magnetic shifts, changes in air pressure, patterns of light flickering at the edge of vision. A place that amplifies these subtleties can feel different, charged. To ancient peoples, such sensations would naturally mean presence, spirits, gods, ancestors. To us, they might hint at electromagnetic fields or standing waves of sound. Yet both interpretations honour the same truth, that the earth and the mind are intertwined, their vibrations overlapping like harmonics in a song. We sometimes think of sacred sites as separate from science, but perhaps they are expressions of the same impulse, the urge to connect the physical with the eternal. When the ancients built temples along ley lines or mountains aligned with constellations, they were mapping the resonance between sky and soil, finding harmony between the human heartbeat and the rhythm of the planet. In a way, they were early physicists of feeling, measuring energy not with instruments, but with awe. Today, travellers still seek these portals. They climb Machu Picchu at dawn, walk the Camino de Santiago, stand before pyramids, or meditate among red rocks. Many return changed, not because they found another world, but because they felt briefly that the world had found them. The line between myth and psychology blurs here. When enough attention, emotion, and memory gather in one place, something happens. It may be subtle, an alignment of minds rather than planets, but it is real. The air thickens with meaning. The place becomes alive in human consciousness. If we think softly, the idea of a portal need not mean a hole in space. It could mean an alignment, a moment when external and internal realities match frequencies, allowing a brief sense of transcendence. The Earth hums with magnetic fields, gravitational tides, electrical storms, and countless unseen motions. The human brain hums too, its rhythms measured in gentle waves. When these two systems synchronize, perhaps we feel the result as awe or peace, or the tingling certainty that we're standing on sacred ground. So the next time you find yourself in a place that feels ancient, don't ask immediately for proof. Listen instead. Notice the rhythm of your breath, the echo of footsteps, the way the wind curls around stone. These are the languages of the earth. Every mountain and shore hums in its own tone, and sometimes by standing quietly, we tune ourselves to it. In that resonance, the world feels less like something we walk upon and more like something we walk within. A living field of memory, energy, and endless conversation between the seen and the unseen. On a clear night, the sky looks simple. Stars, planets, a handful of satellites tracing quiet arcs. But sometimes, for reasons no radar or telescope can fully explain, something else appears. A point of light that moves too quickly to be a plane. A silent object that changes direction, as if gravity itself has been forgotten. For as long as people have looked upward, they have reported such things. Today, we call them UFOs, or in the language of modern investigation, UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. The name has changed, but the mystery remains the same. In the middle of the 20th century, a small group of thinkers began to wonder if these visitors might not come from faraway stars, but from much closer, so close in fact that they share the same space with us. Among them was Meade Lane, who proposed that some UFOs might be interdimensional craft, crossing from a neighbouring reality into ours for moments at a time. He called their occupants Etherians, beings of subtle matter that flicker at a frequency just beyond our senses. Decades later, John Keel, famous for his investigations into strange events like the Mothman sightings, expanded the idea. He described ultra-terrestrials, entities not from other planets, but from other layers of existence, able to shape human perception like artists working with light. Then came Jacques Vallée, a scientist and astronomer who noticed that UFO reports across cultures mirrored ancient stories of fairies or angels and spirits. The phenomena, he argued, might be a timeless presence, interpreted differently by each era. To medieval eyes, glowing visitors from the sky were messengers of God. To modern ones, they became spacecraft. Perhaps both were glimpses of something that doesn't fit inside the word extraterrestrial, something that dwells beside us, behind a very thin wall of perception. What makes this hypothesis so haunting is how well it accounts for the behaviour described in thousands of reports. The objects often appear and vanish suddenly, as if switching between visibility and absence. They accelerate without sound, hover motionless against high winds, and perform manoeuvres that would tear any known material apart. To observers, they seem weightless, free from inertia, moving as though space were liquid and they had learned to swim through it. If these craft exist, perhaps they are not breaking the laws of physics, only moving through a version of them that includes extra dimensions, where the limits we know are bent into curves we cannot yet imagine. In modern times, sightings have been recorded by military pilots whose instruments are among the most advanced on Earth. In 2004, the crew of the USS Nimitz encountered what became known as the Tic Tac object, an oval craft with no wings or exhaust, accelerating from rest to impossible speeds in the blink of an eye. In 2015, off the coast of Florida, the Gimbal and Go Fast videos showed similar phenomena, objects that turned against strong winds, their movements defying easy explanation. The footage was verified but not identified. The pilots who saw them, like Commander David Fravor and Lieutenant Ryan Graves, described not fear but awe. The objects seemed aware, responsive, playful even, like intelligence testing the limits of interaction. Governments have since launched inquiries, gathering radar data, cockpit recordings, and sensor readings. Reports from NASA and defense agencies conclude with caution. Most cases have mundane explanations, weather balloons, drones, optical illusions, but a small fraction resist classification. These are the ones that keep the question alive, not proof of visitors, but a gentle reminder that the sky is more complex than it appears. If we entertain the interdimensional idea, a possible mechanism emerges in soft metaphors rather than formulas. Picture our universe as a vast ocean surface. We, and everything we know, live on that surface, what physicists call a brane, a thin layer of reality floating in higher dimensional space. Just as waves can travel across the surface and splash into the air, so too could something from another brane briefly intersect with ours. During those moments, it would appear solid, luminous, tangible, and then fade again when the waves subside. To our eyes, that might look like an object blinking in and out of existence, leaving behind confusion and wonder. There is also the possibility that such phenomena are not mechanical at all. They might be informational, manifestations of consciousness interacting with the physical world. Some researchers suggest that UFOs could represent a feedback loop between human expectation and the universe's response, a mirror held up to our collective imagination. The objects, in this view, are not machines piloted by others, but shared experiences generated when minds and reality briefly overlap. It sounds strange, but so does quantum physics, where observation changes the outcome of events. Perhaps what we witness in the sky is reality observing itself through us. Every explanation, whether scientific or speculative, tells us more about human curiosity than about the objects themselves. The UFO is not merely a question of astronomy, it is a question of perspective. We long to know if we're alone, and that longing paints lights in the sky. But it also drives us to build better instruments, to look deeper, to expand the borders of our understanding. In that sense, UFOs function as cosmic riddles, teaching us patience, humility, and wonder all at once. The conversation around them has shifted in recent years. Serious scientists now speak more openly, and pilots are encouraged to report sightings without ridicule. This change matters. Curiosity thrives in honesty. It is possible to study mystery without destroying it, to measure light without dimming its glow. Perhaps one day we will discover that these phenomena were entirely natural. Plasma formations, atmospheric reflections, or illusions of perception. Or perhaps we will find that they are something more, windows through which the greater universe glances back at us. Whether these visitors come from other stars or simply from a neighbouring frequency of reality, they remind us that we have not finished exploring. The sky, it turns out, is not a ceiling but a mirror, reflecting our endless desire to meet what lies beyond. So if you find yourself under a night sky and see a strange light moving in silence, you don't have to decide immediately what it is, just watch, feel the air, notice how the stars themselves seem to pause around it. In that quiet uncertainty lives the oldest kind of wonder, the recognition that reality is larger than our comprehension, and that perhaps, somewhere very near, another intelligence is wandering about us too. If there are other dimensions or countless universes layered like pages in a book, then somewhere among them must dwell other forms of life, beings moulded by laws different from our own. To imagine them is to glimpse how creativity flows through nature, endlessly rewriting itself to fit each environment. Life, wherever it blooms, is the universe remembering that it can feel. Here, in our corner of reality, we know life as a pattern of carbon and water, fragile but tenacious. We depend on gravity gentle enough to let us stand, light mild enough to warm but not burn, chemistry balanced like a tightrope. Yet even within our own system, life shows startling variety. Deep-sea creatures glow in eternal darkness. Microbes sleep for millennia inside salt crystals. Plants converse through underground webs of roots and fungi. If the cosmos contains infinite conditions, how many stranger adaptations might exist beyond? Imagine a world where gravity is so strong that mountains never rise, where even clouds hug the ground. On such a planet, evolution might favour short, compact beings, dwarfed but immensely dense, their muscles woven like iron fibres to resist crushing weight. They would walk close to the soil, moving slowly, conserving energy, perhaps communicating through vibrations in the rock rather than through sound. To them, we would seem impossibly fragile, like paper drifting on wind. Or picture the opposite, a planet with almost no gravity, where creatures grow vast and delicate, spreading translucent membranes to catch solar currents. Their bodies could resemble floating sails of mist, gathering energy from light and motion. Communication there might take the form of colour ripples across the surface, language written in changing shades of luminescence. A conversation could stretch across the sky, spoken in waves of glow instead of words. Some worlds may hold atmospheres of methane or ammonia rather than oxygen. There, chemistry could weave different fabrics for life, silicon-based instead of carbon, crystal rather than flesh. Creatures might form from lattice structures that flex like coral and hum when touched by wind. Their motion would be slow, more like growth than locomotion. Instead of blood, they might circulate liquid metals, shining with inner light. To them, thought might be vibration, memory a pattern of resonance stored within crystalline bodies. In universes with twin suns, the rhythm of day and night would vanish. Life might adapt to constant twilight, its senses tuned to subtle temperature changes rather than light. Eyes would evolve differently, perhaps sensitive to infrared, perceiving heat as colour. The idea of sleep might be unknown. Every creature would live in a perpetual balance between brightness and shadow, never knowing complete darkness or rest. And there could be realms where matter itself behaves differently, where the very constants that define reality take new values. If electromagnetism were stronger, atoms would cling together more tightly, and life could take on dense metallic forms, beings of liquid metal gliding through oceans of mercury. If it were weaker, structures might barely hold. Life could become vaporous, shifting, existing half in energy, half in form. Even time, that steady companion of life, might flow unevenly in other dimensions. Imagine a species born in a universe where time stretches slower than ours. For them, a heartbeat might last a century. Thought would unfold like glacial drift, decisions measured in millennia. To meet them would be to face patience incarnate, a civilization sculpting their art from mountains, shaping philosophy through the slow rise of continents. The reverse could also exist. Worlds where time rushes forward like a waterfall, where beings live and die in seconds, yet within those moments experience entire histories. Their civilizations would bloom and vanish between our blinks, invisible but immense. Perhaps such life exists already, flickering through our reality like sparks, too quick for us to notice, yet shaping the energy around us in ways we cannot measure. Then there are forms that might not depend on matter at all, dark energy beings, born from the same mysterious force that drives galaxies apart. They would not live on planets, but within the fabric of space itself, moving through gravitational waves as fish through water. Their senses might detect curvature, density, rhythm. To them, stars would be landmarks of distortion rather than sources of light. Other possibilities drift at the edge of imagination. Non-linear time species, who experience past and future simultaneously, existing as complete patterns rather than sequences. To such minds, every event would be known from the start. Communication with them would be impossible in ordinary language, because every question would already contain its answer. Perhaps they observe us as one might watch ripples spreading across a pond long after the stone has fallen. It's easy to call these ideas speculative, yet even speculation is a way of honouring the cosmos. When we imagine these lives, we're not escaping reality but expanding it. Evolution, after all, is a universal principle, the universe's way of exploring its own possibilities. Wherever matter and energy meet with balance and repetition, complexity arises. Out of complexity comes awareness. Out of awareness comes wonder. Perhaps what we call aliens are not strangers at all, but distant reflections of our own potential, other ways for consciousness to take shape. They might look at us and see the same strangeness we project onto them. Fragile bodies carrying dreams larger than themselves. And maybe communication between dimensions or universes doesn't depend on language, but on resonance, finding the tone where two very different realities can hum together in harmony for an instant. When we gaze up at the night sky and imagine life beyond, we're not merely searching outward, we are listening inward. The longing we feel to know we're not alone is the echo of the universe's own desire to know itself. Every time a telescope opens its eye, every time we tell stories of beings made of mist or crystal or light, we participate in that cosmic act of self-recognition. So, when you picture these beings, dense and tiny, vast and delicate, luminous or invisible, let the image soften. They are not monsters or miracles. They are the imagination of nature itself. Their existence, whether real or possible, reminds us that creation has no single shape. Life is not limited to the mould it took on Earth. It is the melody that plays whenever conditions allow, an endless, improvising song in which we, too, are notes. There is a quiet theory, both thrilling and unsettling, that asks whether everything we see, the stars, the oceans, even our own thoughts, might not be the original version of reality at all, but a vast conscious simulation. To many, it sounds like philosophy disguised as science fiction. Yet it's a question that refuses to vanish, because it hides inside an even deeper one. What, truly, is real? The idea was framed elegantly by philosopher Nick Bostrom, who suggested a simple trilemma. Either civilizations never survive long enough to build high-fidelity simulations of entire worlds, or they survive but choose not to run them, or they have done so already, and we are living inside one. None of these possibilities is easy to ignore. Each, in its way, bends the mirror of existence toward infinity. To translate the theory softly, think of reality as a vast dream written in light. Every atom would be a line of code, every law of physics a subroutine maintaining the rhythm of the universe. Observation would be the act of rendering, just as a computer paints new detail only when the player walks closer to it. When no one looks, the world might rest in potential, waiting to be drawn again. It sounds poetic, but quantum physics itself whispers something similar. Particles exist as waves of possibility until they are observed, at which point they choose a state. Perhaps the universe does the same, unfolding its details only when awareness touches them. Mathematician Max Tegmark once proposed that the universe is mathematics, that existence is not merely described by numbers but composed of them. In his view, every equation represents a world, and our particular universe is just one expression among infinite solutions. If that's true, then to ask who built the simulation might be the wrong question. The universe might not have a creator outside itself. It might be the act of creation continuing endlessly through pattern and logic. Reality, then, is not a program run by someone, but a self-writing poem that calculates itself into being. Still, there are strange hints that keep people wondering. The laws of nature are astonishingly precise, their constants tuned with exquisite balance. A fraction stronger in gravity or weaker in electromagnetism, and stars could not form, chemistry could not bind, life could not breathe. It's as if someone, or something, adjusted the dial so finely that complexity could arise. In religious language, we call this design. In scientific terms, we call it fine-tuning. In simulation language, it might be described as calibration. The universe configured to allow stable performance, as though optimized for awareness to emerge. There are also the oddities of quantum physics that feel almost like software behavior. Information never disappears, even inside black holes. It simply rearranges. Space itself seems pixelated at the smallest imaginable scale, suggesting a limit to resolution, as though the universe renders itself in finite units, like digital frames. Energy levels in certain systems are discrete, jumping from one value to another with nothing in between, as if the cosmos runs on the smallest possible step size, clicking frame by frame through time. These are not proofs, only metaphors, but they echo the pattern of simulation, where continuity is built from countless rapid updates too fine for us to notice. Still, it's important to remember that such comparisons are only ways of thinking, not statements of faith. The simulation idea does not make life less meaningful. It may in fact make it more so. If consciousness is the processor through which the universe experiences itself, then every act of attention adds to the richness of existence. We're not trapped inside a computer. We are the awareness through which the code becomes more beautiful. Some scientists have suggested we might test the theory by looking for glitches, imperfections in cosmic background radiation, or limits to the energy of particles that would indicate an underlying grid. So far, nothing conclusive has appeared, but perhaps the absence of error is the most elegant proof of all. A perfect simulation would leave no seams visible, just as dreams never show you the edges of their construction. There is also another interpretation, gentler and more human. Maybe simulation is just a modern metaphor for what ancient mystics called Maya, the illusion of separateness. For thousands of years, philosophies across cultures have taught that the world we perceive is not the whole of reality, but a projection shaped by mind and consciousness. Whether we describe that projection as divine imagination or digital rendering, the essence is the same. Existence is participatory. We are both characters and creators within it. Synchronicities, those strange coincidences that seem too precise to be random, fit easily into this view. Two stories echo across history, two names repeat centuries apart, two events mirror each other like code reusing itself. The sinking of the Titanic in 1912 was eerily prefigured by a novel written 14 years earlier, describing an unsinkable ship called Titan. President Lincoln's secretary named Kennedy, President Kennedy's secretary named Lincoln. The details align like hidden patterns woven through time. Whether coincidence or cosmic humour, such moments feel like small winks from the program, reminders that reality might have a sense of play. In this vision, every particle, every heartbeat, every thought is part of a vast algorithm of meaning. Consciousness is not separate from the system, it is the system's way of observing itself. Each life adds data to the universe's memory, enriching the ongoing simulation with new possibilities. Death might simply be the moment when awareness unplugs from one scenario and awakens in another, carrying lessons forward like saved files. If this is true, or even partly true, it doesn't make us less real. It means that reality is layered, that the physical world is the visible surface of a deeper logic humming underneath. When you see the sunlight flicker on water, what you're witnessing might be more than a reflection. It might be the universe calculating beauty into existence, frame by frame, heartbeat by heartbeat. So, whether the cosmos runs on divine mathematics, quantum fields, or something beyond words, the result is the same. A reality so intricate and consistent that it feels alive. If we're inside a simulation, it's not a prison, it's a masterpiece, one that keeps rewriting itself through us. And in that understanding lies both humility and wonder. Because even if existence is written in code, consciousness is the poetry that makes it sing. Imagine a quiet laboratory one evening. White walls humming with electricity, a ring of instruments, forming a circle in the air. The scientists don't call it a portal. They prefer words like field experiment or dimensional testbed. But as the power builds, the air begins to ripple like heat over asphalt. Light bends, faintly at first, then sharply, as if space itself is exhaling. Someone whispers that they can feel a pressure in their chest, as though the room has expanded without getting bigger. And then, for a heartbeat, reality flickers. No explosion, no thunder, just a shimmer and a silence deeper than before. If humanity ever reaches the point of opening such a door, truly bending the fabric of the universe to touch another realm, it will not only be a scientific milestone, it will be a mirror held up to our soul, for in every new discovery lies the question, what will we do with it? To open a portal would mean rewriting boundaries we've held sacred for millennia. The boundary between here and there, between now and then, between what we can reach and what we can only imagine. It would be a moment of triumph, but also of vulnerability. What if something looked back? What if the unknown, long content to remain quiet, suddenly became aware that we were knocking? Ethical questions would arise faster than the physics could explain themselves. Do we have the right to pry open the fabric of creation, to peer into worlds that may not be ready, or willing to be seen? Curiosity is our oldest instinct, but so is caution. When the first humans tamed fire, it illuminated the night, and it burned. When we split the atom, we glimpsed the heart of matter, and learned how easily brilliance becomes destruction. A portal too would test not our intelligence, but our wisdom. Scientists might approach it with protocols, controlled conditions, safety perimeters, layers of containment, but the real containment would need to happen inside us. Our ability to hold wonder without fear, to balance awe with responsibility. If the door led only to emptiness, perhaps we would close it. But what if it led to another civilization, or even another version of ourselves? What if, standing in that shimmering threshold, we saw a figure step forward, a mirror reflection, breathing in sync, smiling as though recognizing an old friend? Meeting an alternate self is not just a question for science fiction, it's an exercise in humility. Each of us carries countless versions within, the person we might have become if we had chosen differently, loved differently, believed differently. To meet another you in physical form would be to face the weight of all your choices. Would you feel pride or envy, relief or regret? Perhaps you would see that every path, however winding, leads somewhere necessary. The multiverse could be less about travel and more about perspective, an infinite gallery of what-ifs, showing that every possibility is real somewhere, and that no single version of you holds the full story. The social consequences would ripple outward. Religions might see affirmation in the discovery, proof that creation is vast beyond comprehension. Economies might shift as industries chase the new frontier. Governments would argue over access and control. Would nations share such a door or guard it? History offers both answers. The telescope once united us in wonder. The atom divided us in fear. A portal could do either, depending on how we define progress. And yet, beneath politics and philosophy, the human heart would ask simpler questions. Could you send a message through to the loved one lost if another version of them lived on the other side? Could art, music, or memory travel between worlds? Would stepping through mean leaving our physics behind? Our air, our time, our sense of gravity? We might discover that crossing dimensions is not a matter of distance, but of transformation. To survive the journey, we may need to become something new. Even without a real machine, we already open small portals every day. A telescope opens one into deep time. A microscope opens another into the invisible. Dreams, too, are tiny doors through which we step nightly, visiting worlds built from thought and feeling. Each discovery we make, every expansion of awareness is its own kind of threshold. The universe seems to reward curiosity with new layers of mystery, as if inviting us to keep exploring but reminding us to move gently. Perhaps that's the deeper message hidden in every experiment, that the door we seek out there is the same one that opens within. When we confront the unknown, we also confront ourselves, our capacity for wonder, for fear, for creation. The light that flickers in that imagined laboratory is not just bending space, it's illuminating the human condition. If one day a portal truly forms, glimmering between magnets or humming softly in a vacuum chamber, I hope those who stand before it will feel not the arrogance of conquest, but the humility of communion. The first step through should not be a declaration, but a whisper. We are listening. Because what lies beyond may not be monsters or miracles, but meaning. New forms of consciousness waiting to meet the part of us brave enough to say hello. And if the door opens both ways, then perhaps something will also cross into our world. Not as invader, but as teacher. It might not bring technology or power, but perspective. That the universe is far more connected than we ever dreamed, and that the boundaries between realities are only as rigid as our understanding allows. Until then, the portal remains symbolic, a mirror for our imagination. It reminds us that discovery is never just about what we find, but about what we become in the process of finding it. Every experiment, every question, every spark of curiosity is an opening in the veil of the familiar. Through it, light passes. Through it, we evolve. So, as the hum of that imaginary machine fades and the air returns to stillness, remember this: the door is already open, not in steel or in space, but in awareness. We step through it each time we choose wonder over fear, each time we allow mystery to expand instead of shrink. And perhaps that is the safest way to explore infinity, one heartbeat, one discovery, one gentle opening at a time. Every night, as the world grows quiet and thought begins to soften, we fall backward into darkness and open a door we barely understand. Dreams are the most common kind of time travel, the most intimate kind of multiverse. In them, the mind becomes a dimension of its own, free of gravity, unbound by logic, painting whole realities in a heartbeat. We may wake with only fragments, a face that never existed, a hallway that spirals forever. But for those few hours, we live in another world as real as any waking one. Perhaps dreams are the simplest evidence that consciousness is not limited to a single plane. The same brain that measures traffic lights and breakfast times also constructs vast cities from silence, speaks languages it doesn't know, and fills its imagined skies with people who never were. The physicist might call it neural pattern generation. The poet might call it soul travel, and both would be telling part of the truth. Somewhere between biology and mystery, the dreamer crosses into parallel states of being. In some dreams, we revisit lost places, childhood homes, the faces of those who are gone. It's as if sleep restores our access to older coordinates of memory, allowing us to walk once more through moments the waking mind can no longer reach. Neuroscience explains this as the reactivation of stored emotion, the hippocampus sorting, the cortex replaying. But that explanation, while true, does not cancel the feeling. When you hold a loved one again in a dream, no formula can reduce the tenderness of that illusion. Perhaps what we call illusion is simply reality expressed in a different language, the language of longing. There are moments too when dreaming feels less like invention and more like reception, as though the mind is tuning into a frequency already broadcasting elsewhere. People who share similar dreams on the same night, or dream of a place before ever seeing it, sometimes wonder whether consciousness can wander between timelines, touching possibilities that haven't yet solidified into the physical. It may sound fanciful, but even waking life has its strange synchronies. The thought of someone before their message arrives, the feeling of déjà vu as if memory were running slightly ahead of time. Dreams could be the same phenomenon turned inward. Awareness wandering freely through the probability field of experience. If dreams are small doors, then death has always been imagined as the great one, the final passage through which awareness slips when the body can no longer hold it. Cultures across time have described this journey in almost identical metaphors: a tunnel of light, a bridge, a river, a stairway, a threshold. Even the most secular minds find poetry in these images, for they mirror something universal, the sense that consciousness does not vanish but transforms. Modern medicine, with its quiet monitors and soft beeping, has studied thousands of near-death experiences. The stories vary in detail but share the same essence: peace instead of panic, light instead of darkness, clarity instead of confusion. Scientists trace these sensations to the dying brain, oxygen loss creating luminous visions, neurotransmitters flooding the synapses with calm. Yet even those who understand the mechanism often speak differently afterward. They describe life as if it had deepened, widened, as though they had glimpsed the sea beneath the surface of the wave. It is possible that death, like sleep, is not an end but a change of awareness, a shift from one mode of perception to another. The energy that animates us does not appear from nowhere and cannot vanish into nothing. It transforms, recycles, continues. Physics tells us energy is conserved. Perhaps consciousness is too, not in form but in essence. Maybe it moves through realities the way a melody moves through instruments, changing tone but not identity. In this view, death might be less like a wall and more like a doorway opening inward. The consciousness we call I could be a traveller, stepping out of one dream into another, shedding one body the way light leaves a lamp to continue across space. When we speak of loved ones, passing on, the words may be truer than we think. They pass, yes, but on to where? Maybe to a neighbouring universe, where time flows differently, where we already await them, unaware that we have become the welcoming side of their transition. Some philosophers suggest that the border between dream and death is thinner than we imagine, that each night in miniature we practice letting go. We surrender control, dissolve the boundaries of self and return to a place of pure awareness. In that sense, every night's sleep is a rehearsal for eternity, and every awakening is a small resurrection. The line between them is not sharp but rhythmic, like the inhale and exhale of existence. When the ancient Egyptians wrote of the weighing of the heart, they pictured the soul as a feather drifting into balance with truth. Perhaps that was their way of describing the same physics of spirit, that awareness must become light to travel further, unburdened by regret or fear. To awaken on the other side, whatever that side may be, we might need to shed the density of matter and carry only what the universe can keep: understanding, kindness, the memory of love. Whether this is metaphor or reality hardly matters. What matters is the comfort in knowing that endings are woven into beginnings. Even the stars themselves die in order to seed new galaxies. Their ashes become planets, their dust are bones. Every breath we take contains atoms once held in the lungs of ancient suns. The universe recycles everything, even the light of consciousness. Perhaps that is the final secret. There are no true walls, only transitions: birth, sleep, love, loss, each one a doorway to another room in the house of existence. The rooms differ in light and sound, but the traveller remains the same. To die may simply be to wake into a large dream, one that includes all the others. And so, if your eyes are heavy now, let them close. Somewhere, in another strand of reality, you might already be listening to this same thought from the other side, where time flows softly and every question finds its echo. If the universe is a vast house of doors, then perhaps the last one is not locked at all. It opens gently, quietly, as awareness slips through, carrying with it everything it has ever loved, everything it has ever learned, and beyond it, maybe there is not darkness but dawn.